The temple doors closed behind Dr. Sarah Chen with a sound like thunder. She stood alone in the vast chamber, her heart pounding in her chest. The air was thick with the smell of ancient incense and something else, something that felt like time itself. She had never seen anything like this place. Massive stone pillars reached up into the darkness above her. Each pillar was covered in strange symbols that glowed with a soft blue light. The floor beneath her feet was made of black marble, polished so smooth she could see her reflection. And all around her, carved into the walls, were faces, hundreds of them, thousands, the faces of the dead, watching her with empty eyes. This was the Temple of Memory, the most sacred place on the planet Kel'thar, and Sarah was the first human ever allowed to enter. Her hands were shaking. She tried to steady them, but she couldn't. Everything depended on what happened in the next few minutes. If she failed here, Earth would remain alone, isolated, treated like children by the rest of the galaxy. But if she succeeded, human. The voice cut through the silence like a blade. Sarah looked up and saw them. 7 figures sat in a half-circle before her, elevated on a platform of white stone. They were the Kel'thar's priests, the leaders of one of the oldest civilizations in the galaxy. Their skin was pale gray, almost white. Their eyes glowed with a soft purple light. They wore long robes that shimmered and changed color as they moved, blue to purple to black, like oil on water. The one in the center was clearly their leader. He was taller than the others, and his robes were decorated with golden symbols. In his right hand he held a staff as tall as a man, topped with a crystal that pulsed with light. His face was ancient, lined with wrinkles, but his eyes were sharp and cold. This was Vel'Karan, the high priest of the Kel'thar. "Step forward," he said. Sarah walked toward them. Each step echoed in the enormous chamber. She felt like an insect walking toward a group of giants. When she reached the center of the chamber, she stopped and bowed low, just as she had been taught. "Your Holiness," she said in Standard Galactic, the language used across the galaxy for diplomacy. "I am Dr. Sarah Chen, representative of—" "We know who you are," Vel'Karan interrupted. His voice was deep and slow, like rocks grinding together. "We know what you want. The question is, why should we give it to you?" Sarah straightened. She had prepared for this. She had practiced her speech 100 times on the journey here. "The human race seeks only friendship," she began. "We are new to the galactic community, yes, but we are eager to learn. We wish to trade knowledge with the Kel'thar. We wish to—" Empty words. Another priest had spoken. This one was younger, with eyes that burned with barely controlled anger. His robes were dark red. "Every species comes to us with the same speech, friendship, knowledge, peace. But humans are different, are they not? You are violent, reckless. You have barely left your own star system, and already you make demands of your betters." Murmurs of agreement came from the other priests. Sarah's face grew hot. "We do not make demands. We make requests, respectful requests." "Respect." The priest in red leaned forward. "You speak of respect, yet you know nothing of our culture, nothing of our history, nothing of our pain." "That's not true," Sarah said quickly. "I have studied your people for 3 years. I know that the Kel'thar value knowledge above all else. I know that you keep records going back over 50,000 years. I know that your civilization survived the Great Collapse when so many others fell. I know—" "You know facts, human," Vel'Karan said. His voice was quiet, but it silenced everyone. "Facts are not understanding. You know about us, human, but you do not know us." He stood slowly, rising to his full height. He was at least 7 feet tall. The crystal on his staff began to glow brighter. "Let me tell you what I see," he said, walking down from the platform. His footsteps echoed. He felt like an insect walking toward a group of giants. "And now," he said, "this young species comes to us and asks to be treated as equals. Tell me, human, why should we say yes?" Sarah's mind raced. This was the moment. She could feel it. Everything she said next would determine the fate of billions of people.
Because— Wait, Velcaron raised one long finger. I will make this simple for you. I will ask you one question. If you answer correctly, we will consider your request. If you answer incorrectly, you will leave this temple and never return. Your people will remain alone in the galaxy. Sarah's throat felt dry. I understand. Good. Velcaron's purple eyes seemed to look straight through her. Here is my question. What is the oldest virtue of the Catharax people, the foundation upon which our entire civilization is built? Sarah's mind went blank for a moment. The oldest virtue. She had read about this. It was in the historical texts. The official records said it was preservation of truth. The Catharax were famous for their libraries, their archives, their obsessive recording of history. But something felt wrong. The way Velcaron asked the question, the way he emphasized oldest, it felt like a trap, like the official answer was too simple, too easy. And then she remembered something. Something she had found 6 months ago in the restricted section of the Galactic Library. A fragment of text so old that even the translation computers couldn't read it properly. She had spent weeks deciphering it by hand, working late into the night, cross-referencing symbols with other ancient languages. It was in Kel'thar, the Kel'thar, the original Catharax language, a language from before the Great Collapse, a language that had been dead for over 10,000 years. The fragment had mentioned something, a concept, a philosophy that had no direct translation in any modern language. Sarah looked up at Velcaron, at his cold, challenging eyes, at the other priests watching her with expressions of disdain. She made her decision. She opened her mouth and spoke in a language that had been silent for 10 millennia. Zenkata il Morthun. The effect was instant and dramatic. Every priest in the chamber froze. Their glowing eyes went wide. Their mouths fell open. Sarah continued, her voice gaining strength. Zevrai kathen ulmora sevren. Velcaron's staff slipped from his fingers. It fell in slow motion, spinning through the air. When it hit the marble floor, the sound was like a gunshot. The crystal at its top shattered, sending fragments of light scattering across the floor. But Velcaron didn't seem to notice. He was staring at Sarah with an expression of pure shock. His hands were shaking. His mouth moved, but no sound came out. The other priests had risen from their seats. One of them stumbled backward. Another pressed his hand to his chest as if he had been struck. The priest in red robes had gone completely pale. The silence in the chamber was absolute. Finally, Velcaron spoke. His voice was barely a whisper. Impossible. He took a step towards Sarah, then another. He moved like a man in a dream. That language, his voice cracked. That is Kel'thar, the first tongue, the language of our ancestors, the voice of the gods themselves. He looked at the other priests, then back at Sarah. Tell me, human, tell me how you know words that have not been spoken in this temple for 10,000 years. Tell me how you speak the language of the dead. Sarah stood perfectly still, her heart hammering in her chest. Every eye in the chamber was fixed on her. The fate of humanity hung in balance. And she realized she had just done something impossible, something that could change everything, or destroy everything. Sarah stood frozen in place, barely breathing. The chamber felt like it had shrunk around her. 7 alien priests stared at her with expressions she couldn't read. Shock, fear, maybe even anger. The shattered fragments of Velcaron's staff clistered on the black marble floor like stars. Answer me, human. Velcaron's voice was low and dangerous now. How do you know the first tongue? Sarah swallowed hard. Her mouth felt like sand. I studied it in the archives on— You studied it? The priest in red robes stepped forward, his face twisted with disbelief. Do you understand what you have done? Kel'thar is not just a language, it is sacred. It is the voice of our ancestors, the voice of the gods themselves. I didn't mean any disrespect, Sarah said quickly. I only wanted to— Silence! Another priest slammed his fist on the armrest of his chair. This is blasphemy. She has violated our most holy traditions." The priests began talking over each other, their voices rising in anger and confusion. Some were shouting, others were whispering urgently to one another. Sarah caught fragments of their conversation, words like forbidden, punishment, and exile. Her heart sank. She had made a terrible mistake. She thought speaking their ancient language would impress them. Instead, she had offended them, angered them. Everything was falling apart. "Enough!" Velkaran's voice cut through the chaos like thunder. The other priests fell silent immediately. He bent down slowly and picked up the broken pieces of his staff. His hands were still shaking. He straightened and looked at Sarah with those burning purple eyes. "Tell me exactly what you said," he commanded. "In standard Galactic, translate the words."
Sarah's eyes burned as she stared at the holographic text floating in front of her. The symbols blurred together. She blinked hard, trying to focus, but her vision wouldn't clear. How long had she been awake? 30 hours? 40? She had lost count. The teaching stone pulsed on her desk, projecting new words every few minutes. Around her room, pages of handwritten notes covered every surface, the floor, the walls, even the ceiling. Red lines connected words to meanings. Blue circles highlighted grammar patterns. Black arrows showed relationships between concepts. It looked like the workspace of someone going insane. Maybe she was. Sarah reached for her water bottle and took a sip. Her hands shook so badly that water spilled down her chin. She wiped it away absently and returned to her work. Shalmora. That word meant eternal, but also forgotten. How could something be both eternal and forgotten? It made no sense in standard Galactic, but in Kel'thar, the two concepts were connected. Things that lasted forever were eventually taken for granted, forgotten, lost in plain sight. It was brilliant, but it was also maddening. Every word in Kel'thar was like this, multiple meanings layered on top of each other, shifting based on context. To truly understand the language, you had to understand an entire civilization's way of thinking, and she had 12 days left to master it. A sharp pain shot through her head. Sarah pressed her palms against her temples and closed her eyes. The headaches had started 3 days ago. They were getting worse. Just a little longer, she told herself. Just a few more hours, then I'll rest. But she had been saying that for days. The door chime sounded. Sarah ignored it. She couldn't afford interruptions. The chime sounded again, then again. "Go away," Sarah muttered. The door opened anyway. Thalrin rushed in, his face pale with worry. "Dr. Chen, we need to talk, now." "I'm busy." "I know, but this is important." Thalrin stopped mid-sentence. He looked around the room in shock. "By the ancestors, what have you done to yourself?" Sarah didn't look up from her work. "I'm studying." "This isn't studying. This is madness." Thalrin walked over and gently turned Sarah's face toward him. His eyes widened. "When did you last sleep?" "I don't know. Yesterday? The day before?" "Your eyes are bloodshot. Your hands are shaking. You can barely stand." He glanced at the mess around the room. "Dr. Chen, you're going to kill yourself at this rate." "I don't have a choice," Sarah said, pulling away from him. "You said I needed to be perfect. You said Sovrak wouldn't forgive even the smallest mistake, so I'm making sure there won't be any mistakes." "Not like this." Thalrin deactivated the teaching stone. The holographic text vanished. "Hey, I was using that." "You're exhausted. You can't learn anything in this state." He picked up a blanket from her bed and wrapped it around her shoulders. "When did you last eat?" Sarah tried to remember. "This morning?" "It's evening now. You haven't eaten all day." Thalrin pulled a nutrition bar from his bag and handed it to her. "Eat this, then sleep, at least for a few hours." Sarah took the bar but didn't open it. "I can't sleep. Every minute I waste is a minute Sovrak gets closer to destroying everything." Speaking of Sovrak, Thalrin's expression grew serious.
That's why I came. I overheard something tonight. Something bad. Sarah looked up. What? Sovrak held a secret meeting with the Keepers of Purity. They're planning something for the ceremony. I don't know the details, but they mentioned ensuring you never get the chance to speak. Falren's voice dropped to a whisper. I think they might try to sabotage the ceremony itself. A cold knot formed in Sarah's stomach. How? I don't know, but you need to be careful. Trust no one except Velkarin, and even then, he hesitated. Even Velkarin cannot protect you from everything. Sarah's head spun. She was so tired, so overwhelmed. First, the time limit was cut in half. Now Sovrak was actively plotting against her, and she still had so much to learn. I can't do this, she whispered. The words came out before she could stop them. It's impossible. I'm going to fail, and everyone on Earth is going to suffer because I wasn't good enough. Stop. Falren gripped her shoulders firmly. Listen to me. Do you know why I believe in you? Why Velkarin believes in you? Sarah shook her head. Because you've already done the impossible. You learned 50 words of a dead language with no teacher. You spoke those words in the council chamber with perfect pronunciation. You moved the high priest to tears. Falren smiled. The human I saw that day was strong, confident, brilliant. But the human I see now is broken, defeated, and that is exactly what Sovrak wants. He released her shoulders and stepped back. He's not just trying to make you fail, he's trying to make you believe you'll fail. Because if you believe it, you will. That's his real weapon, not sabotage, not politics, fear. Sarah sat in silence, letting his words sink in. You're right, she said finally. I've been so focused on being perfect that I forgot why I'm doing this in the first place. I wanted to build a bridge between our peoples. But bridges aren't built through perfection. They're built through genuine effort, through respect, through, she paused, remembering the ancient words, through living truth. Falren nodded. Now you're thinking like a Kithrax. Sarah managed a weak smile. I still need to learn the language. Yes, but you need to learn it the right way. Rest now. Sleep for 8 hours. Eat a proper meal. Then tomorrow I'll help you study. I may not be a master of Kel'thar, but I know enough to guide you. Why would you risk that? If Sovrak finds out you're helping me. Then he finds out. Falren's eyes hardened with determination. I'm tired of being afraid, tired of watching my people cling to the past while the galaxy moves forward. If helping you costs me my position, so be it. Some things are worth the risk. Sarah felt tears building again, but this time they were different. Not tears of frustration, tears of gratitude. Thank you, she whispered. Falren smiled. Thank me by succeeding. Now sleep. That's an order.